Yeah, the director of Black Panther, Ryan Coogler.
Yep.
Him and LeBron James are working on this. I think I made a joke on Twitter a while ago about how it should have Michael B. Jordan playing Michael Jordan in a Space Jam sequel. Hey guys, PIEGUYRULZ here, and I am joined by, as always,
MonstersReview.
Don't you mean Monstars?
Don't you mean the notorious PIE?
Oh, it's good to be back, baby.
Back on the couch, had to dust it off after about a year and a half of not entering this void.
Before you guys get your hopes up too much, this is a reunion episode. It's a one-time thing. You know, when things get rebooted for like a reunion special, it only happens once, and it will never happen again.
Ever.
Enjoy this special reunion episode of the recast. Michael B. Jordan was a good enough cameo to bring us back from the brink.
That was just too good. We couldn't pass it up.
Yes. To be honest with you, I completely forgot that I made that reference, that dumb joke, way back in an early episode of the recast.
And this was back in, late 2018?
3 years ago.
Yeah. So that's quite a guess. That's quite a...
Listen, was it a guest, or am I a ghostwriter on Space Jam 2?
Yeah, I was gonna say, there's 10 writers attached to that movie, so who knows? Maybe you did help write the movie.
Could you imagine if just in some universe, someone who wrote for Space Jam 2 watched the recast?
I mean, hey, it's possible. We've got our base.
In 3 years, you could have gone from like a nobody to a Hollywood writer. Writers, basically anyone could be a writer.
True.
I mean, for something like Space Jam, where it's written by committee.
Yeah. I have something to reveal, Pi. I am Zack Snyder.
Oh my god! Thank you for releasing your cut, Mr. Snyder.
Of course, it was the only way I could see my film truly released in its creative integrity.
Hey, you're a big snob. How did you feel about the 4:3 of the Snyder cut? Was it a fun throwback to your VHS days?
Well, I'll say this much. I have not seen the Snyder cut, nor have I seen the original theatrical cut of Justice League, just because I really don't care much about the DC theatrical universe.
But they're in this movie that we're going to talk about later.
They are. Yeah, I didn't see it. I don't really care. Zack Snyder's movies aren't really my cup of tea. But in terms of the 4x3 thing, I think it's a bit pretentious.
Yeah,
it's one thing if it's screened in IMAX all over the place, but mid-pandemic, the vast majority of people are going to be watching this on widescreen monitors or widescreen TVs, and there's a bunch of black bars. So, personally, if I were watching it, I don't think I would care much or feel like I was missing out if they cropped out the top and the bottom.
If you have to put a disclaimer before your thing about your aspect ratio, warning, this is not, do not adjust your set. I don't know, man. I think you've kind of messed up.
Yeah. It's just, you have to watch it in a square box to preserve the creative vision of this visionary filmmaker who is Zack Snyder.
It's just funny because we talk a lot about how executives always ruin things and how, giving people creative freedom is generally good. And it generally is. It's just, sometimes you need someone to come in and say, no, this is a stupid idea. This is not, from a practical standpoint, that if they're gonna go ahead and make it this, vanity, here you go, fans, we gave this to you, I guess they might as well give Snyder complete creative freedom.
Well, I can understand it, too, because he had some tragedies in his personal life happening, so he had to sort of exit the film, and Joss Whedon did basically all of the post-production, so the movie didn't end up the way he wanted it. But now you see other people, like the guy who directed Suicide Squad, trying to start a hashtag release the Ayer cut, and it's hindsight's 2020.
Excuse me. You need to be more specific. Not James Gunn. Not the guy who released The Suicide Squad, which also could have been a subject for this recast. I just want to throw that out there.
We're talking about the 2016 Dancing Snake Lady Will Smith movie.
What?
Did you not watch the 2016 one?
No, God, no. I have taste.
That's fair.
All right. Well, that's been two people who don't care about Zack Snyder or the Justice League talk about the Justice League.
Yeah.
We're a few minutes in and we're already into a subject we are not qualified to talk about. But we're going to do it. We did it anyway. But how have you been, Monsters?
I've been doing good. I haven't been super active on the whole YouTube, social media thing. Since the recast ended, I've posted a couple of videos. I posted one about Jetix. It's like a half-hour retrospective. And that video has far exceeded my expectations in terms of how it was received. I think it's close to like 900,000 views right now.
You say this every time. Every time you make a video, you're like, oh, well, I expected it to get 1,000 views. And then your Planet Sheen one has 8 million views or whatever.
Yeah, I definitely didn't expect it. So I'm really glad. I made the video sort of talking about Jetix as this whole worldwide movement, because I think a lot of the time we, as Americans, we tend to we kind of look at media in this tunnel vision, looking at how we see things in America, because we are sort of like the entertainment capital of the world, and we produce the most amount of stuff that gets put other places. But Jetix was, it was on Toon Disney in the States and on ABC Family, but it was this huge thing across Europe and across Latin America, and I felt like it was important to talk about that as well. And most of the comments I see on that video were like, love from India, and love from the Netherlands, and love from Brazil. So it's been really cool seeing people get nostalgic and remember shows that they forgot about and stuff like that. So I made that video. I made a video in December about Tosh.0. That video has not done as well. I think it has like 10,000 views. But I still had fun making it. I know it's a bit, I guess the word is like irrelevant compared to what I normally make, because it's like, it's not animation, and it's like a comedy series about viral videos on Comedy Central. But the show ended, and I felt very strongly about it.
I found both of those to be pretty interesting videos, despite not being attached to either. Like, I didn't watch Jetix growing up, and I saw a few episodes of Tosh, but it's not my jam.
Right.
But it was fascinating to see, really the key to YouTube, or at least the key to like a good video essay or whatever, is it's just passion. People can feel the passion as long as you care about the subject. Like, I don't need to know anything about it. I don't need to have experienced it. Of course, if I have, it makes it more enjoyable. Right. But like, just knowing, because I had a passing familiarity with Jetix and with Tosh.0, so being able to kind of just hear a little bit more about him was fascinating.
Yeah, the Tosh video is interesting because Tosh is a very controversial figure. He's a stand-up comic, and his brand of comedy is quite raunchy. Let's just say he's made a lot of missteps. So I tried to be sort of conscious of that. Because there are definitely a lot of things he's done that are just like not okay, that I do not agree with and that I do not find funny. But at the same time, I do feel like he was important in sort of providing a voice to the internet and sort of showcasing all of these niche things that otherwise wouldn't have gotten as much attention. I did those things, and then also over on Salty DK Dan's channel, he's been doing this like Pokemon playthrough thing.
Friendlock?
Yes, the Friendlock. Essentially, it's like Dungeons and Dragons, where you like role play as a Pokemon, and you choose the moves. And if you die in the game, because it's a Nuzlocke, if your Pokemon faints, then your Pokemon essentially dies and has to get released. So yeah, I've been having fun doing that too.
I hear all the time, like on my live shows, people coming in and being like, how's Monsters doing? Like, he was so funny on Friendlock. Like, people love you on Friendlock. I want you to know. I don't know anything else about it other than that people think you're great, and they enjoy you.
I appreciate that. Yeah, it's all like live streams, so it's completely improvised. In the first season, which was Pokemon Emerald, I was doing a character that was sort of like a take on Borat.
Oh God!
And yeah, so a lot of people really enjoyed that, and I'll get a lot of "Wobble-wee-was" or very nice comments. Very nice. And then in this most recent season, which is Pokemon Black, I played an original character I made named Pete Ness, who is the name is ironic in that way, but he's sort of like a boomer capitalist who at his heart has a soft core. But yeah, that's enough about me. I'm curious to hear what you've been up to.
Well, I finally finished the SETI arc, Bottom of the Bakery.
Yes, that video was so good.
The previous video predates the recast. Oh gosh. Yep. So I kind of finally got my act together on that, and then I've been working on some other stuff in the background, doing the award show audit with Shadow, which is 100% spiritual successor to this show, and I've been doing gaming streams on my gaming channel. Been trying my hand at being a little bit of a streamer, having a lot of fun with that. So yeah, I've seen a lot of support and love for the recast in hindsight. And every time I get a message like that, or I see a message in the award show audit Discord or whatever, I send it to Monsters, and I send it to Kuro and Leia and Nick, and obviously Shadow sees it. But like, yeah, because there's a lot of nostalgia for the show, and I don't know, it's so weird because when we were making it, it always kind of felt like we were not under fire, but we were kind of fighting against what my fan base wanted, and now that it's over, it's kind of the other way around, where It's like, wow, this is the quote from Andy from The Office, where it's like, wow, I wish I knew when the good old days were, so I could have enjoyed them back when they were happening.
Right.
So, yes, okay, but that's enough navel gazing. This is the recast, episode 70 / the reunion episode, and we are going to be talking about Space Jam and Space Jam: A New Legacy. But first, we are going to be talking about what else we've watched. Monsters, you have like a year and a half of stuff that you could potentially talk about.
Right.
What have you been watching?
There is a lot I could talk about, but I'm going to leave this section to what I've watched more recently, probably in the past couple weeks. First off, I just want to ask if you've seen it before I talk about it. The first episode of What If?
No, I didn't know it dropped. I'm excited.
Yes.
I want to watch it. I'm going to, for sure.
With the way it's punctuated, I keep wanting to... It's spelt what if ... question mark. So I keep wanting to say Marvel's What If?
What if?
What if? Yeah, but we talked a little bit about this in the recast, sort of news about it, and I think we saw like a screen cap and sort of heard a little bit of news about it, sort of being this, anthology thing.
Sounds like it was stuck in development problems for a long time, because it came out a lot later than, like, they announced it a long time ago.
From what I could recall, we talked about it in late 2019. Personally, I've really been looking forward to the series because, obviously I love animation, and I love anthology stories, and I love Marvel stuff. So with this being sort of a combination of those things, I really couldn't wait to see it. So this Captain Carter episode, I really enjoyed it. I mean, just speaking on the visuals alone, I was like very, very, very impressed, because it has this sort of style where the characters are they're detailed, but it's also sort of stylistic and simple. It's like this sort of cel-shaded look that almost looks like it could be out of like a video game cutscene. Someone pointed out, it's kind of like, I don't know if you ever saw on Nicktoons Network, Iron Man Armored Adventures. It was like 10 years ago. It kind of looks like that. It's a bit more detailed than that, but just the scale of everything. There's so many different set pieces and so much action, and the animation itself, there's a few moments where it can get a little choppy, but for the most part, it's very dynamic and there's a lot of action. I was just super impressed by that.
Nice.
I found out that the series is actually directed by Brian Andrews, and you probably don't recognize that name, but he co-created Symbionic Titan, and he's been a storyboard artist on like Powerpuff Girls, Life is a Teenage Robot, Samurai Jack. And also for the past decade, he's been like one of Marvel's in-house storyboard artists for the movies, for like previs and stuff. So he's done storyboard art for like all 4 Avengers movies. So it seems like he has a really good eye for like cinematic action and sort of, converting that into animation. So yeah, I was really impressed by the visuals. The writing is okay. If I'm being honest, it's just sort of like a condensed overview of the first Captain America movie, plus sort of a few variations, because obviously it's a take on what if Peggy Carter was Captain America and not Steve Rogers. And then also one of the unique things about this series is that a lot of the actors from the movies are reprising their roles in this animated thing.
But not all of them.
Not all of them.
I was under the impression they got everyone back when they announced it. I guess, but maybe that was my fault, because I don't know that they said everyone is back as much as they said, hey, we have like 20 of the big name Marvel people, including Samuel L. Jackson.
Right, they were boasting that like a lot of the actors were coming back. I don't know if they mentioned everybody. Like, I don't think Chris Evans is back. I think they got Josh Keaton to play Steve Rogers, and he does a good job. But yeah, you can tell some of the actors aren't like very experienced in a booth. You can tell that some of them, I don't think, have done a lot of animated stuff. But otherwise, yeah, no, I really had a fun time with this. You've seen some, or I've seen some tweets that are like, you know, What If is good for not being live action, and it still kind of bothers me that people look at it as this sort of lesser art form, because it's really good and it deserves to be looked at in a fair perspective.
Of course. And I mean, it's a pretty ambitious idea. Like, you know, people sometimes dump on Marvel for being very similar in a lot of its movies. And, you know, even I have that criticism sometimes. They go out and do something like this, or even WandaVision, which I was not a big fan of. But I can still recognize that they're both weird experiments that they don't have to do. They could keep pumping out AAA movies and ignore TV. A lot of people wouldn't mind it at all, but they are genuinely trying to do some weird offshoot stuff, and you gotta respect it. You know, regardless of how you feel about it, I think that it's good that they're still taking risks and chances this late into the game, when really they just slam dunk after slam dunk in terms of money-making machine that Marvel is.
Absolutely. And this whole format of like, alternate stories allows for, things are obviously moving in a different direction after Endgame happened. So it's cool that they have this format where they can bring back some beloved characters who have since been sort of phased out of the MCU. And from the looks of it, it seems like reportedly Marvel is like ramping up their animated stuff and opening up this whole new division at Marvel Studios where they're going to make more animated shows. So I'm really looking forward to that, and I'm really looking forward to the rest of What If.
Real cool stuff. I'm glad it seems like it's living up to the hype.
I watched What If, and then I watched a little miniseries for the first time by the name of Over the Garden Wall. Yeah, I saw it on HBO Max, and I remembered like, oh yeah, this came out in like 2014, and I've never seen it before. And it's like 10 episodes long, and each episode is like 11 minutes, so it's just under 2 hours, and I was like, I have the time, I might as well check it out. Ultimately, I really, really enjoyed it. It feels like such a special piece of art. It's weird, and it's quirky, and it's creepy.
Emmy Award-winning series.
Yes.
Emmy Award-winning.
It
also Award Show Audit Award-winning.
Yes. But yeah, I really resonated with the story. It just leaves you thinking, because there's all of these layers and depth to it. And for those reasons, I don't think it's for everybody because of how quirky it is, but I just really enjoyed it. I think it's appropriate for almost anybody because, it's not like too creepy and scary to the point where kids can't watch it, but it's also not like, super
lighthearted and giggly,
slapstick enough, right, to like turn off adults.
Honestly, Over the Garden Wall it's art. Like, that's the way to describe it. It deserves an award because it's art. It captures a very, very, very specific feeling and style, and it feels otherworldly. It feels like someone from another universe came and made this piece of media and then left.
Apparently, it was in development for a very long time. Like, originally, it got pitched in 2004, and then they wanted to make a feature film out of it, but he turned that down. And then Patrick McHale, he went to go do Flapjack and Adventure Time, and then finally he had the chance to do it. And I'm glad that Cartoon Network continued with the whole, I guess you would call it miniseries, with like Infinity Train, because it's kind of similar in that way, where it's these limited 10-episode anthology things that are sort of more targeted towards young adults. They're not super giggly, but and they have these deep stories to them. I love the whole art direction. It's very immersive and atmospheric. There's lots of sounds. The
voice cast, dude. You got to mention the voice cast.
Yeah, Elijah Wood and Christopher Lloyd is the woodsman.
Yeah, those two are such tour de forces.
Yeah, the warm autumn colors. I know some people have said that they make it like a Halloween tradition, just sort of watching it with friends every year, and I could totally see that becoming a thing for me.
Yeah. makes sense.
I'll be honest, I didn't really like Greg at first for those reasons we kind of mentioned. Like, he's a very giggly, naive character who, in the first few episodes, he's sort of the source of a lot of conflict, where he sort of stumbles into the wrong situations and, just ends up finding himself in trouble and creating collateral damage. And
he doesn't really think.
Yes.
Yeah, he just does things.
And Wirt has to, or Beatrice has to pull them out of it. But by the end of the series, let me tell you, I am rooting for Greg. Greg is an awesome character, and I will defend Greg at all costs.
And that's a rock fact. I've been watching Your Life.
You have?
Also known as Monsters at Work.
Oh.
I've been watching The Reason You Left the Recast.
Yeah,
Monsters at Work.
I've been at work.
I've only seen the first episode and a half. I meant to watch more for this because full circle, baby. Because we mentioned it in the first episode of the recast. We mentioned that it's because it was announced, right? The very first thing that Disney Plus did. Well, maybe not the first thing. After we knew Disney Plus existed, they came out with this list of here's a few things that are coming, and it took a long time for Monsters at Work to finally get here. But yeah, it's weird. It's very odd. For one thing, there's a new protagonist, but Mike and Sully and Cecilia and Roz and all your favorite characters except for Randall are back, and even Mr. Waternoose has a cameo. It's just kind of weird because it gives off Scrubs season 9 vibes, where it's like, hey, we're introducing you to a new character who's going to carry most of the show. But also, your favorite characters who you kind of really just want to watch them. They're here, they're hanging around, but they're trying to phase them out of focus so they can focus on the new characters. I never really like when shows do that because it just gives this weird vibe.
Mm-hmm.
The premise is that the main character graduated from scare school, goes off to Monsters, Inc. to be a scarer, but oops, the plot of Monsters, Inc. happened, and it's the laugh floor now. So he gets shipped off to to be like a janitor, a maintenance person, while trying to learn to be funny to make the kids laugh. Any show where it's like there's supposed to be a joke that makes the characters laugh, as an audience member, you always feel kind of awkward if you don't find it funny.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the laughing that the monsters make the kids do, it's very juvenile. I don't even know if the audience is supposed to laugh at it because it's a lot of falling over and stuff falling. It's very slapsticky.
Yeah.
Where I fully believe that the kids in the show find it funny, but it's just kind of
Well, in that way, does it feel tonally different than the original film, where a lot of it is kind of
adult double entendre and stuff?
Yeah, and sort of dialogue-based humor.
It feels younger. It does feel younger. There's Miffed is the Monsters, Inc. I don't know, the janitor group. And they're all hyper wacky characters where Boss is just a big goofball, and there's an token evil teammate that wants the main character gone, and there's this lady who he went to college with and only met once, but she treats him like she's his best friend. It's very... I don't want to say it's trying too hard, but it kind of does. The first episode, I didn't think it gave me a great trust that wow, this is going somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's great seeing all the beloved characters. They got John Goodman. They got who's it, Billy Crystal?
Yes.
I was anyway in the first episode just left with this feeling of I want to just watch them.
Like Disney's done this before, but did it feel sort of like a thing where it's less about the main characters, it's less about Sully and Mike, and it's more about them sort of trying to pass the torch and sort of trying to make you like these new characters, and it feels very forced in that way.
Yes. So the way they did it in Scrubs that always rubs everyone the wrong way is that they introduced this new character. Basically, JD, the protagonist of Scrubs, the first episode starts with him. He's narrating, he talks about all the changes. His episode for 8 minutes, and then the way they pass the torch, and I kid you not, he literally just walks by the new main character, and then the internal monologue of his switches to hers, and that's it. And then we follow her. They don't do an actual passing the torch, and then it flips back and forth for the first few episodes, and then they drop JD. They drop him, but it's not like the new character is bad. It's just you don't really get too much of a taste of her because you're too focused on the character you've known and loved for 8 years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you got to do a better job at incorporating. Oh God. I didn't mean to say that. Not incorporating. At universitying, the main character, the new and old main characters, because people are obviously going to be attached to the old ones.
Right.
And you can do a passing of the torch, but like, if you have the old cast and the new cast, don't give them separate things to do. Put them all in the same group so that when the old cast goes away, you still feel like you care. And I don't know if the old cast goes away, but it feels like they've set up the show in such a way that if later episodes or later seasons or whatever they're doing wanted to drop Mike and Sully, they could, right? Because the janitors exist deep underground in Monsters, Inc. So theoretically, they don't really have to show what's going on the scare floor or whatever. It was all right. Like, it was all right. I didn't hate it, but it didn't feel... There was something about it that didn't feel like the quality of the movie. And I know it's a lot to expect, but I think a part of it is that it has the visuals of movies. In fact, it probably looks better than the original Monsters, Inc. All right, so we're not going to do news, but we are going to go into a question. Just like the first episode of the recast, there is no longer an audience for us to ask this question to. We wanted to keep this a surprise, so I asked a question. Hey, Monsters.
Hey, Pie.
What is your favorite reboot, rehash, revival that's come out since the recast ended?
I'll run this by you. I'm going to name a show, and I want you to tell me if you think this fits the criteria of a reboot, revival, or rehash. Okay?
Okay.
Jellystone.
Oh, absolutely. It's a rehash of these characters. It's a retool.
Right, that's
we
what
don't
I was
have retool
thinking.
in our title, but retool is probably the best word for it. Absolutely.
Because the thing is, it's like, if you're looking for Hanna-Barbera stuff in the style of Hanna-Barbera, Jellystone is not that. It's very CH Greenblatt flavored. I would say it's more akin to like Harvey Beaks than it is Chowder. It's because Chowder was just like very over the top, and it's like there's like constantly bits happening, and it's so like outrageous. Harvey Beaks is a bit more toned down. It's a bit more charming and sort of low key. I would say Jellystone is kind of in the middle of that, but I would say it's more similar to Harvey Beaks, but it's its own thing. It's not like, what you expect from Hanna-Barbera. And for that reason, I think a lot of people on social media were upset.
Oh. Uh-oh, I didn't see that.
There were a couple instances of gender swapping.
Well, of course, because it's all dudes. As we'll talk about later with Space Jam, a lot of old cartoon characters are just dudes. Like,
right.
It's okay to get some non-dudes in there.
Absolutely. Just like petty things people were upset about. But yeah, I've only seen about 4 episodes, and I don't think I love it quite yet, or if I ever will love it. But I do really like it. It's just very amusing. It's fun. It's charming. Even with the characters, it's like, they're not doing accurate impressions of what they sounded like, but it's more or less sort of the cadence of what the characters sounded like. It's fun. It's silly. It's sort of your standard CH Greenblatt fare with lots of, there's cutaways and there's...
Oh, no.
Yeah.
It's Family Guy, but Yogi.
There's cutaways, and they find ways to utilize the Hanna-Barbera characters in clever ways.
What you're saying is there's old friends and new friends and even a bear?
Oh, yeah, no, there's bears.
His name is Yogi Bear. Oh, no.
I guess that's my answer. I really couldn't think of anything else. The only other thing I thought of was Animaniacs.
Yeah, so my pick is I'm gonna go with the obvious in the Animaniacs reboot. This is a show that if the recast were still running, we would have absolutely done an episode on them. I think that the Animaniacs kind of follows that gold standard of reboot. It's kind of like in the same vein of DuckTales, really, where it's like it just captures the original so well, I think. In the Animaniacs segments themselves, they nailed it. Like, I don't know. There's, of course, been a lot of controversy in regards to it being political, in regards to character removal, and a lot of other stuff. And yeah, no, I don't think it's perfect. But if you take everything else away and you just focus on the Animaniacs themselves, I think the music is fantastic and fun. I think some of the commentary is spot on. And it's nice to have a show that's just off the wall bonkers with its stuff, and the animations looks good too.
There are some subtle differences, but it's still very close, and it still resembles the original series very much.
And if you go back and watch the original, although a lot of it's great, not all of it is. I wouldn't hold the original to such a high pedestal.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know whether I'd say the reboot is better or worse. I think it might be too early to kind of say that in general. I couldn't get into the Pinky and the Brain shorts. I prefer them in their half-hour format. I like their show a lot more than I like them on Animaniacs, personally. Mm-hmm. And then, yeah, I think it's a real shame that they got rid of the supporting cast. And no, having a cameo in one episode does not in any way count. But yeah, I thought it really came out of the gate and nailed it, especially because Animaniacs is that's such a difficult thing. If you told me to write an Animaniacs short, I don't know where I would begin.
Right.
The Bun Control episode, the parody of Gun Control, that one is like super great. And I don't really mind the politics. I will say, I think it's kind of disingenuous to say that it's exactly the same as the original in that aspect, because it wasn't really like, let's criticize the administration so much as like, isn't it funny that Bill Clinton plays the saxophone? Right? Like, That's the joke in the opening. It's not political commentary.
You feel like it's taking more of a stand now, or more of a stance.
Right. And I honestly, I don't have a problem with that, but I'm just saying there is a difference, and if you don't like political satire, or you're sick of it, which I think is a fine stance in 2021, maybe it's not for you, or maybe you don't like it, and I think that's completely fine. I think, anyone railing against it because they don't like the particular politics of it, I think maybe you're a little in the weeds a bit. I don't necessarily agree with that, but if it's not your thing, that's completely fine, and it's okay. All right, and then one more question. Okay, if any brand could have a serververse in the same way as Warner Brothers in Space Jam 2, what would be the absolute worst to be transported to?
What would be the worst?
Yeah.
As in, like, surrounded by the worst brands and worst franchises.
Yes, for media brands anyway. CBS? It would be a nightmare for me, just constant laugh tracks.
CBS would just be a bunch of Chuck Lorre sitcoms, like...
Yes, I hate it.
Oh, look, it's Big Bang Theory and 2.5 Men. I'd have to think about this one for a little bit. Maybe like the Hallmark movies serververse?
Oh, no.
I feel like, or like Lifetime movies. I know people look at them as like a guilty pleasure, and some people unironically enjoy them, but that would just be a bit much for me.
Yeah.
That would be tough company. Maybe the Quibiverse?
No. Yes, you nailed it. You'd get stuck with the horoscope characters.
Yeah, you get stuck with the daily horoscope characters, Chrissy Teigen.
You'd have a bunch of celebrities at least, but maybe that's a negative.
The only good company would be the cops from Reno 911.
How about the YouTube serververse? I think that might be the worst thing.
That would be pretty bad.
There'd be just so many. It'd be like overpopulated. You wouldn't be able to move.
Yeah, would that include commenters as well as content creators?
Oh, God,
because that would basically be like most of the universe.
It wouldn't include the commenters, but their comments are everywhere. You couldn't walk 2 steps without being told that you suck.
So like YouTube, yeah.
Yeah, basically. It's like, I mean, I guess we're on the YouTube server. Well, literally, we are on the YouTube server right now. I hate to tell you.
Oh, wow. Can I please get back to reality?
All right, well, we need to take a break to ponder the existential horror of that moment, and we'll be right back to talk about Space Jam!
Come on and jam.
And welcome to the slam. Wait.
How does it...
Come on and slam.
And welcome to the jam.
Come on and slam. If you want to jam, it's your
pump
chance.
It up.
Take your dance at the Space Jam. All right, and we are back. So, Monsters, being the nerd that he is, wants us to talk about the things that preceded the 2 Space Jam movies.
Yes, the works that inspired Warner Bros. To say, hey, we have a movie here.
As with all great franchises, it started with a commercial.
Yes, a commercial that aired during Super Bowl 26 in 1992.
Hair Jordan.
Yes. So Bugs Bunny, I guess, lives beneath a basketball court, and there's people playing on the basketball court, and they're dribbling, and he's like trying to sleep or something, and it's bothering him. So he comes up to the surface, and he's like, "Hey, what are you guys doing?" And then, these basketball players get all aggressive, and they're gonna bully Bugs Bunny. But then Bug's old pal Michael Jordan comes out, and they beat those guys up.
Yeah, and it's all like cartoony. Like the guys are just these big lunkheads that are like, ha 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 ha.
Yeah, it's very campy. There's lots of sound effects and like holding up signs, and there's
Close-ups.
anvils. Yeah,
Close-ups. Weird like lenses were used, fisheye and stuff.
High angles, low angles.
Yeah, it's fun. I think it was probably a knockout Super Bowl commercial, like a really cool idea. Definitely for a commercial.
Right. Well, think about it. Like in the early '90s, who would have expected? Because, like, we're in a media sphere where we're constantly bombarded with crossovers now. So, like, you're not as surprised when it happens now. But imagine it's the early '90s. Michael Jordan is the most popular athlete on the planet. And Bugs Bunny is this revered cartoon character, and they play basketball together, and they beat up people on a TV commercial.
Bugs Bunny also met the Trix Rabbit, I just want to say.
Oh, really?
I think it might have been around the same time, too. I don't know. Listen, there was a period, like in the 90s, where Looney Tunes were kind of losers, to be honest. Like, the franchise was not doing great. There was not really any Looney Tunes properties, and it was a time before Cartoon Network.
Yeah, actually, Cartoon Network launched, I believe, in, like, late 1992, so... And, I mean, Cartoon Network was just old reruns of, like, Looney Tunes and stuff, but before that, they were kind of... they'd sort of fallen into obscurity a little bit.
Both Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon helped kind of, bring it back in a renaissance. So, anyway, yeah, cool commercial, definitely. it shows its age, but it's neat. And then it was popular enough to come out with a sequel called Aerospace Jordan. I guess air puns in Jordan, like, you gotta have it, I guess, his airness.
His airness, yes.
In 1993, the year I was born. So in this one,
it's very tough to follow what happens. It's like
everything is on times 50 speed. It's ridiculous. There's like aliens or something, and this one is like the precursor to Space Jam.
Yeah, this one is like it's a minute and a half, which is pretty long for a commercial.
Yes.
But they just cram so much into it.
Oh yeah, Marvin steals all the shoes or something, Air Jordans, and then they have to go to Mars to play him.
Yeah, then they go up into space and Michael plays basketball. This one's like much more of an overt advertisement for Air Jordans than like the original Air Jordan commercial, because like it opens up with these newspapers in black and white, and it's like, who would steal Air Jordans? And there's all these like close-ups and stuff on the shoes.
Yeah, and there's a product shot. That was my favorite joke, is that the dog holds up a thing that says product shot and then end of product shot after it's over. It ramps out the 90s up to 1,000,000. There's also some shots where Michael and Bugs are like squished. I don't know if that's intentional. Yeah. It looks like the aspect ratio's wrong. Maybe it's the YouTube re-upload or whatever, but I don't know. It's very strange. This one felt gratuitous. The first one was like, okay, that's a fun idea. This one is just like, how many things can we cram into a minute and a half commercial while still trying to sell shoes, promote Michael Jordan, promote the Looney Tunes? Like,
it's a pretty good example of sequelitis, where like,
yes,
they just try to be bigger and better when they really didn't have to.
Mm-hmm. It's an entertaining watch for sure, but like, I would have been annoyed if this commercial ran more than once on my TV, to be honest, especially with how long it is. Maybe it aired in front of movies. I don't really know, but yeah. So that's how Space Jam happened, basically. I don't know. Some other things happened between 1993 and 1996, but then Space Jam. So if you've never seen it, and I hadn't before this, Space Jam is a movie. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Wow.
Space Jam is a movie about. It's about promoting Michael Jordan. But basically, Michael Jordan retires from basketball and plays baseball, as happened in real life. I don't know, man. Life is strange. But, he's kind of in a slump with it. Meanwhile, this alien amusement park, the Danny DeVito alien cartoon, wants the Looney Tunes for their attraction. So he sends the Monster Squad, down to Earth where the Looney Tunes live. They live deep beneath the crust of the Earth for some reason that's not explained. And then the Looney Tunes trick them into giving them a fair chance for their lives. But they choose a basketball game because the monsters are short, and then they steal basketball powers and become tall. So naturally, the Looney Tunes have to steal Michael Jordan in order to play a basketball game for their lives.
Yeah.
I made that sound a lot more complicated than it really is.
Yeah, it's not that complicated. It's like...
It's not at all. It's just the Looney Tunes are forced to team up with Michael Jordan to play a basketball game for their freedom. I guess I need to set the scene here. So I was one of those people that didn't have an interest in seeing either Space Jam and kind of looked down my nose at them like, that's, those are little kid movies. Like, these are stupid movies, whatever. I don't care. And then I got in a Discord call with Shadow, and he was like, I saw it today. You might, and I'm like, oh, I don't have any interest in seeing it, and he's like, oh, do you want me to tell you about it? I'm like, yeah, sure. So he spoils the whole movie, the second one. And I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. And then he tells me about the cameos and the, all the stuff that we'll talk about, the weird sequences and stuff. And I'm like, oh, all right, that's kind of mildly interesting. And then Leia and Nick show up. Apparently they had seen the movie together. And then they're like, oh, hey, do you mind? Like, let's talk about it. And then so they describe the whole movie to me. And while they're doing that, I'm like, all right, some of these cameos and some of these like weird sequences, like it sounds, and again, we'll talk about them, but like, it's like, this sounds too surreal to pass up. So I go on HBO Max, and while we're all hanging out, I screen share it, and we basically watch the movie in a completely random order based on, Nick was like, oh, you got to watch the scene where this happens, and we got to see this. So I watched all of the basically non-story scenes of Space Jam 2 out of order. And I had a blast. Because I think that's maybe the best way to watch either of these movies. But, so I saw that, and then we decided we're going to do this, and that's when I saw the first one. So I just wanted to say that I had seen a lot of the second movie before this one, but technically not all of it. So yeah, I didn't really know what to expect. Of course, I've seen it referenced a million times. I saw the Nostalgia Critic video on it, like 8 years ago or whatever. I knew some of the stuff, but I don't know that I was prepared for how strange a movie the original Space Jam is. The Looney Tunes being in it is probably the least strange part of the original Space Jam.
Yeah. I find it interesting that you said that earlier that that the movie exists to promote Michael Jordan because, well, I think it definitely achieves that. I feel like we get a lot of Looney Tunes and more Looney Tunes than we do Michael Jordan.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, you might be right. I kind of felt like we got too much Michael Jordan, to be honest. I don't care about sports. That's my thing. I'm just saying that. Obviously, they're very popular and people like them.
Right.
But yeah, I came for the Looney Tunes, and Michael, like, he's fine. Like, I don't hate Michael Jordan or anything, but just like, I didn't really care about all the sports talk. And there's a lot of it.
Right. I mean, I'll give some context. I grew up loving the NBA, so...
Well, of course, you're like 9 feet tall.
This is true. So like seeing all of these childhood heroes of mine, in this big movie event felt like very special to me. In addition to, them interacting with the Looney Tunes, which is like, whoa, that's crazy when you're a little kid watching this.
Right.
Last year, they released a docuseries about Michael Jordan called The Last Dance. I'm sure you've heard of it.
Nope.
But no.
No.
It was produced by ESPN. It was this big thing. And I watched through that, and they actually had a little segment in there about Space Jam. Because as you mentioned, this sort of ties into Michael Jordan's real life. He started out, he became this big basketball prospect. He played for the Bulls. He won 3 championships. And then there was just a lot of different things happening in his life. For example, he was getting a lot of media scrutiny over things related to his recreational gambling.
What? A sports player with a controversy? Never.
Yeah.
That's a quaint controversy.
Say what you will about gambling, but like he wasn't like an obsessive gambler. He just did it sometimes because he's Michael Jordan's obviously being the star athlete he is. He's a very competitive person
and rich,
has a lot of money. So yeah, like Michael Jordan had a bunch of things going on in his personal life, a bunch of media scrutiny. At that point, he had already won 3 championships, so he felt like his career was sort of peaking. And then also, his father was unfortunately shot and killed, and his father was very important to him. His father was like his biggest fan,
and they used that in the movie. They
used
the fact that his father passed away as a part of his explanation of why he's quitting basketball.
Right. And he got interested in baseball. He wanted to get his mind off of basketball, and he wanted to find another way to sort of exert his competitiveness. So he tried to play baseball. I think he was in the minor leagues, and he was actually a pretty decent baseball player, but as an athlete, the muscles that you build up for baseball are entirely different than that for basketball. So he had to like work with his trainer and completely remold his body into that of a baseball player. And he actually got pretty good. He played for a couple of years. But then one day he stumbled into the Bulls facility and he started doing like one-on-ones or 3v3s. And he got back into the swing of it and he kept showing back up for practice. And then in 95, he joined the Bulls again. He came back to the Bulls in early 95, I believe. And then they shot this movie over the summer of 95. So in The Last Dance, they talk about over the summer of 95, Michael Jordan, he like just came back to basketball. And while they were filming this movie, because they originally planned on doing this movie earlier in the 90s, but then everything got put on hold when he decided to become a baseball player. Everything happened again once he decided to return to basketball. They shot this movie over the summer of 1995. And he came back in the 95 season at the end, and they didn't do very well. So he was like, okay, I need to switch my body back from being a baseball player into a basketball player again.
He trained with Bugs Bunny.
Yes, of course. He trained with the best of the best cartoon characters. But no, he had them build what they called the Jordan Dome on the Warner Bros. Lot, this giant enclosure that had like a full basketball court on it with all of this workout equipment.
The lot? Why on the lot?
I mean, he's Michael Jordan. You can't tell him no. But they talked about how they would shoot like Monday through Saturday, 12-hour shoot days, call time at like 6 a.m, and he would still work out for 5 hours a day. So he would shoot the movie for like 12 hours a day, and then find time to work out and play basketball for another 5 hours, and do that for 6 days a week over the summer of 95.
Wow, he's definitely an impressive guy, 100%. I don't follow sports or know much, but like he seems like someone that is a big star. Like was a perfect candidate for this movie.
You go into a movie like this not expecting an athlete to give an Oscar-worthy performance or anything close to it, but like you can tell that he when he puts his minds to things, he really achieves great things, and he's such a driven person.
Look, I would have probably preferred an actual actor in here.
Just like the rest of his family.
Yeah. But I mean, he does a competent performance. For what this movie needs, he's able to give it, I'd say.
Yeah. What would you say about the other actors like Wayne Knight and Bill Murray, who were there to provide comic relief?
Oh, man, I love Bill Murray. I loved Bill Murray in this movie. He didn't care. He just didn't care. And that's great.
But I kind of wonder, like why was he there? He was just sort of there chilling out.
I feel like he was related to someone that made this movie. I think that's the case. I think that's like legitimately it. I think he just showed up and they decided to put him in. That's why his arc in the movie is that he shows up and then they decide to put him in. Because he wants to be in there. It's probably real life writes the plot like a lot of the rest of this movie. He probably just showed up. He was filming something else. Yeah, and then they were like, hey, you want to come meet Michael Jordan? And he's like, oh yeah, why not? And then they're like, you got to be in this cartoon movie. And he's like, oh, all right, put me in.
Yeah, play some golf.
Yeah. My favorite joke in the movie is when the Danny DeVito alien is like, I didn't know Dan Aykroyd was in this picture.
Right.
Because it's not Dan Aykroyd, it's Bill Murray. Right. And they don't like correct him or anything. They let that joke be there, and the kids won't get it, but I did.
From what I know, a lot of people don't like the character Stan, the Wayne Knight character, who's just sort of this obsessive bumbling assistant.
Look, we'll talk about it, but I think the worst part of either of these movies is when it tries to actually be a movie with like a story. I think that yeah, like I don't know, the assistant, he's fine. I didn't aggressively hate him, but it didn't really do anything. Like he was just kind of there. I don't know. His arc doesn't come to any conclusion. He gets put in the game and then flops, and then that's like the end of it. You know, like they kind of set him up as a bumbling assistant, and then they don't go anywhere with his character. He stays that way. What did you think of Michael Jordan's arc in this movie? Because like, what was the point of it? Other than to be a vanity thing that reflects reality, there's this whole thing about how he plays baseball, but everyone sucks up to him. Everyone's like, ooh, we love you. Like, oh, it's okay that you struck out. That's fine. Like, he's surrounded by yes men, and he's kind of tired of it. And then I think at one point he mentions that the Looney Tunes don't do that to him, which, like, cool. But then his arc never, like, there's not a resolution. Like, why did they do that? What is the point other than to reflect reality?
I mean, I think it's not like a fully fleshed out arc. Like, I think the arc really is reality, where it's like he starts out as like a bumbling baseball player, and then after playing basketball with the Looney Tunes, he decides to return to basketball.
But what's the point with everyone loving him? Is that just more like, puffery to pump up Michael Jordan in the movie? More vanity project stuff? Like, what's the point with the first scene with him and his dad? I don't care. I mean, obviously he loved his father. I didn't know he passed away in real life. It's a touching little tribute to him, I suppose, but it's just like in the course of this movie, in the context of it, it's like, what's the point other than to show Michael Jordan is great, right? He's always been great at basketball. That's
the other part of it too, because like Michael Jordan in that flashback sequence to when he was a kid, he's like, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna go to college. I'm gonna be one of the best basketball players of all time. So he does that, but then when he gets to baseball, he's crappy at it. He's not very good, and it's like, when is Michael Jordan not great at something?
Maybe just because I don't care about sports, but I found so much like. I did not like the first 15 minutes of this movie.
I get that, yeah.
I like the opening titles. I mean, listen, the song, come on and slip, absolutely iconic. But the big montage of him playing basketball, I'm like, all right, come on, get on with it. I don't care.
Like the opening credits. That's just sort of like career highlights.
It's it's not even an hour and a half of a movie, and the title sequence is 5 minutes long.
Yeah.
And then we have to go through his whole, I'm retiring from basketball. Oh, I'm playing baseball. Oh, everyone loves me. Oh, let's introduce the Wayne Knight as the comedic buffoon. All this stuff before we really get to the Looney Tunes. I'm just like, I don't care. I get that they wanted to try to make this a movie. But from where I stand, Space Jam and 2, I guess I'll just say it now, they're not movies. They're not good movies. They are entertaining vehicles for cool set pieces. And I respect them on that front, and I like them on that front. I do. I actually like both these movies. Yeah. I believe it or not. But I would never in a million years say, this is a good movie, this is worthy of an award, because it breaks all, the both of them break all sort of, every rule of storytelling, every rule of making a good movie. The arcs don't go anywhere, and the ones that do, they're boring compared to the rest of the movie. Things are nonsensical and weird, and so that's kind of a lot of the things that try to be more story in this, I found fell flatter than, watching Danny DeVito scream at a bunch of little aliens. That's fun. A lot of it's fun, and I like that, but some of this movie is trying to be an actual movie with a story about Michael Jordan and an arc to his character and this other stuff that it just I don't know. I'll
be honest, and I mean, I already mentioned I'm a bit of a basketball fan. I did enjoy the I guess you can kind of call it a subplot with the players who had their talent taken away, trying to figure out what's wrong with them. They go to a doctor. There's actually, I think my favorite line in the movie is when Patrick Ewing is he's at a psychologist's office or something, and the psychologist is like, are there any other areas you haven't been able to perform in? Obviously referring to an adult joke. But yeah, I don't know, I found it kind of heartwarming and funny, and
you found that heartwarming? The that he might have other things that aren't working about him? That was the part you found heartwarming?
Not that part in particular.
Oh, okay.
But sort of the part where Charles Barkley goes to the basketball court and he can't play, and them getting wheeled to the hospital and stuff.
Is it just because you're they're just like me now? I don't know.
They're relatable because I don't have any basketball talent. No.
I'm not saying I toss out the basketball aspect. I get it. It's fine. It's just I don't know. When I find that when this movie is trying to be more of a movie and less of just a bizarre, insanity fueled, basically big commercial of weirdness. I find that those are the least enjoyable parts for me, and I just want to get to the Looney Tunes. I want to get to the weirdness.
I feel that the Looney Tunes are pretty well utilized in this movie. I think my favorite scene in the movie, actually, and this is probably a very unpopular
when they're hooting and hollering at Lola Bunny. That's your favorite part.
Yes, objectification is my favorite. No,
yeah.
I think my favorite scene is when Bugs and Daffy have to go to Michael's house to get his clothes, and they're sort of, they're bickering and arguing, and Michael's kids end up noticing that Bugs and Daffy are in the house. And I don't know, it felt very sweet, and I felt like it was a good representation of Bugs and Daffy. I feel like there's a lot of that, Taz cleaning up the gym and using Pepe Le Pew as a stinky skunk. I feel like they really use the Looney Tunes in good ways that implement their character traits.
Yeah, I'd say so. The CG has aged just horribly.
Yeah, some of it is not very good.
No, they turned Michael Jordan into a ball, and it just looks like it looks like a nightmare. It doesn't look cartoony and fun. It looks like body horror, and I don't think that was the intention. That didn't age well, and I gotta say, the crowd shots. Listen, crowd shots are very, very difficult. They're one of the most difficult things in animation to pull off. Mm-hmm. But this is a film. This is not like a TV show episode, and it's not a completely animated film, right? They don't have an infinite amount of other animation to worry about, and the crowds are prominently featured. It's distracting when there are the same character pasted 10 times in frame. It's distracting. I mean, I'm a nerd, so you might not have noticed this if you're a more casual viewer. But to me, it's I don't expect, the crowd shot to be perfect. I completely understand why it's not, but it's a little too copy-paste. I wish they at least recolored some of the characters, clothing or whatever.
I agree.
There's this one pig with, a green shirt and hat that is just prominent everywhere.
There's a few instances, too, where you can see, the character renders, and there's a bit of, artifacting around, around them.
But that, it's a product of its age, that's fine. But as far as the rest of the 2D animation, the 2D blending with real world, and just the 2D animation in general, I think it's just amazing. I love it. I miss it.
Amazing. Very well shaded, very fluid.
Doesn't look dated. Would you imagine that? Using 2D animation, which is something that generally doesn't change a whole lot with technology. There's cell shading, or there's animation cells versus digital and all that stuff. But the eye knows that it's not a real thing. It's not trying to be a real thing. It's a drawing, but it looks good, and it will always look good. I think the 2D animation sequences will always look good. You can watch this movie 30, 40 years from now, and you'll still say, wow, that's cool. Daffy interacting with the dog looks fine. But the CG doesn't work. And maybe I'll have something to say about that with the new Legacy.
I agree with you completely. Oh, one thing I wanted to say about the plot quickly is it's funny how at the beginning you were sort of explaining the plot. And you were like, yeah, it's not that confusing. But then there's a scene in the subplot with those basketball players who lose their talent where they're at a psychic. Mm-hmm. and she basically says the plot. She's like, there have been aliens who attempt to abduct the Looney Tunes and they face off in a basketball game and they stole Michael Jordan. And the players are like, what? No, you're crazy. This is a scam. That never happened. Sort of dismissing the psychic as being sort of full of crap.
Right.
So I thought that was really clever.
I guess let's talk about Lola real quick. Yeah, so as mentioned earlier with Hanna-Barbera characters, the female Looney Tunes are Granny, Tweety if you're stupid, and Witch Hazel. There's your three. Two. It's two. Tweety's a guy. But, and Witch Hazel is not a main Looney Tune either. So, yeah, they had to add a female character, which is good, that's fine. But, the combination of the fact that she is the new character meant to be the girl Looney Tune, and the fact that she is so horribly objectified in this movie and serves as nothing more than eye candy for the characters and some unfortunate people in real life. It's just sad. Really. It's it's a product of the time. She takes offense at being called, what is she called, babe or doll? Yeah, she takes offense by it, but every shot in the movie that she's in either has Bugs or the audience or someone drooling over her.
Yeah.
It's annoying. It's fine to introduce her and have her be Bugs' love interest, sure, but it's just the level of drool is gross. It's gross, man, and it makes her not a character. It's weird. I
agree with you.
I just thought, it's worth mentioning. So, all right. Yeah. Space Jam 2, A New Legacy.
Well, I don't think Space Jam 2 is in the title. I think it's just Space Jam, A New Legacy.
Well, I want to just clarify it for the people at home. So, LeBron James is a basketball player.
Right. Some people refer to him as this generation's Michael Jordan.
Oh, okay. King James versus his airness.
Yeah.
LeBron is a big star in the real world and in this movie. Don Cheadle's character, Algae Rhythm, a sentient version of a computer program who decides what Warner Brothers does, I guess. Decides that he wants to use LeBron James's like popularity to pump out a bunch of movies using his likeness, and then also kind of steal his son's technology to scan people into things, into the digital world. So Algorithm steals LeBron and his son, and then turns his son against him and sends him to Looney Tunes world where they have to play a basketball game for his son. Meanwhile, Bugs uses LeBron's desperateness to round up the Looney Tunes characters who have all gone their separate ways, and then they play basketball.
Yep, that's what happens.
Okay, so first of all, just going in chronological, I have a lot of notes on this.
Same here.
The opening. Okay, first of all, I called that it was going to be Bugs Bunny's Crazy Castle, which to me is beyond crazy because it's such a bad game, and it's most notably known for being in an AVGN video where him and Bugs Bunny come to blows. Like, I would be willing to bet that is 100% how today's generation knows of that game. So it echoes the first movie, right? Oh, as a lot of things in this do, where we start off with young Michael. Young Michael in the first one is making shot after shot after shot, and talking with his dad. And although I don't think it's entirely necessary to movie, I will admit it's a sweet scene where it shows that him and his dad had a special relationship and his dad encouraged him and Michael had big dreams and all that stuff. In this one, LeBron is too distracted with video games to play basketball well. We don't see him hit a single shot. And then he goes outside and his coach is like, listen, you've got to throw away your video games because you are never going to be the biggest basketball player in the world if you play video games and you get distracted. And it's like, we haven't seen any example of LeBron being good at basketball or wanting to do basketball. Like, I know that we in the real world know he's a big star, but it's just like they need to show in that sequence that he is someone who is good at basketball or cares in any way.
Well, all they say is that like the coach is like, come on, Bron, you're like the best player I've ever coached. Do you want to be a once in a generation talent or not?
It's utter nonsense. It's utter. I get they're trying to echo the first movie. I get that they're trying to, we know the real life context that he gets there. He is a good basketball player. I get that video games weren't as accepted in the 90s, and that sets off a storyline in the movie about video games versus basketball. But like, just in context of that scene, it's like, what kind of psychopath coach is talking like this to a little kid? Like, get out of here. That was dumb. I thought that scene was dumb.
I agree.
What was admittedly a sweet scene in the first movie is here now turned into, I guess, an important plot beat, but also just like this really unreasonable coach. I would be wondering if there was more to this scene that got cut down because they wanted to get to Looney Tunes faster. That would be my guess, that there was a little more in there.
And then we get the same sort of career highlights opening credits.
Yep. It's at least I think a little shorter, but it's still just kind of like, all right, I get it. He's good at basketball. Like, I don't know. And then we get, I have got the same feelings about this too, except probably harder here, where it's like, oh my God, I don't care about him and his son. Oh my God, I don't care about his family life. Oh my God, I don't care about like any of this crap. Like, get to the fun stuff.
I feel like this one is much more of a family drama. Michael's family really, they're only in a couple of scenes in the first movie. This one is like entirely about LeBron's relationship with his son, Dom.
Like I said, I think the worst part of either of these movies is when it's trying to be a movie. And yes, the emotional arc of him reconnecting with his son, who he's pushed to, like, all this stuff is what you would put in a movie, right? It is story writing 101 about you set up the conflict early, you drive a wedge between the two of them, and then in the climax there's a teary-eyed like, I'm sorry, Dad, or I'm sorry, son. But this isn't a movie. This is a fun, wacky vehicle for Warner properties, and I don't care about LeBron James' son. Like, I don't. I mean, I'm sure he's a fine gentleman in real life, if he has a son, but
yeah.
It's there because someone said, we can't just have a movie that's just fun for 90 minutes. We need to have a story. It's like, no, you don't. No, you don't. In this type of movie, no, you don't.
I'm about to say something very petty, But I feel like this movie suffers from what I am going to call the Game Shakers delusion, which is the delusion that, like, 13-year-old kids are capable of making studio-grade video games, which is just, like, you know, it's really hard to suspend your disbelief that much.
Here's the thing. It's a good message to show that kids can create this stuff, because kids can genuinely create really impressive stuff in games and stuff.
Absolutely.
But yeah, the way this movie does it, and at first, so the kid has like a Nintendo called it a Game Boy camera. It's what it looks like. His phone has like a big camera on it.
It's like a 3D scanner thing.
And at first you kind of think, okay, well, this just exists in a world where like everyone can have these 3D scanners that you scan someone, put them into the video game. Doesn't make any sense from a real world perspective, but from a visual storytelling, like this is how he makes games, sure. But then that becomes a crucial plot point when we find out that apparently this kid has invented this technology somehow.
Yeah.
Somehow. And that's the reason why Algae Rhythm wants him. Not even because of LeBron James being popular. I don't know if it was Algae's plan from the start. And they're not really clear on that. At first, it seems like he just genuinely wants to steal LeBron's likeness and just put him in a bunch of movies because that's what would make money. But then he kind of goes off the deep end, and then at some point he cares about the kid's technology. I don't know. They're not clear on that.
So I agree completely. And I think what would have been the more likely outcome is that, like, LeBron, being the mega wealthy person that he is, like, paid some, you know, startup or tech studio to, like, help his son create these games or help invent this new technology.
Yeah, I don't know. There's definitely a way to do this. And I don't mind the scan-in technology. As ridiculous as it is, I think it is a good storytelling thing, but it is just kind of weird, and it's showing kids that they can make video games and do creative things is good. But showing it in this unrealistic way just sets up unrealistic expectations that they're going to just start learning to code, and then in a few days they're going to be able to make this fully realized video game. I think it would have made a little more sense if maybe even if it was just concepts and Algae like brings them to life. Honestly, like, as much as I think this is a little more hacky storytelling wise, if they really just had it where Algae wanted LeBron, he wanted to use his likeness and everything, and so he just stole his son just as a means to get to him and turned his son against him. I think that would have been just a nice little shortcut that could have just kind of, I don't know, made the annoying story lesser, right? You just show that LeBron is too focused on basketball. He's not really focused too much on his son. His son has all these drawings like, Dad, I want to make video games. I want to make basketball games. You know, and then you have Algae steal him, and Algae's like, hey, I can make your basketball game, right? Tempts him with these offers and stuff, and LeBron has to save his kid. That, you know, and that's it, right? Make that the conflict, make that what the basketball game's about. That's it, right? You don't need all this emotional, like, not in this, because at the end of the day, it's still a basketball player that's going to be acting it out. It's still going to be surrounded by a bunch of silly Looney Tunes stuff. Like, this movie does not need an emotional core.
I agree.
And I wouldn't argue that often. But yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I guess we can talk about how the way that Algae Rhythm is introduced is that LeBron has this meeting at Warner Bros. Where his agent sets him up with this opportunity, and they show this sizzle reel that's made by Algae Rhythm that basically showcases like a CGI cartoony LeBron placed into a bunch of different Warner Bros. Properties like Harry Potter and Game of Thrones and...
Well, he pitches the movie. He pitches this movie.
Yeah. And then LeBron says, and I quote,
"Yeah,
this idea is straight up bad. It's among the worst ideas I've ever heard. Top 5 easily." So, take that as you will.
Self-deprecating, I guess.
I mean, I guess it's sort of self-aware in that way, too, because before that happens, like, basically the algorithm finds out that, or not really finds out, but the algorithm determines that LeBron James would be a great celebrity to partner with. So the algorithm lets the executive played by Sarah Silverman know. She's just like chilling in her office, and then she gets an email popping up saying like, work with LeBron James, and she's like, okay. So I guess it's sort of, you know, it's making fun of the fact that executives...
Yeah, they're brainless idiots in this. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, brainless and only answer to the algorithm. So I guess it's self-aware in that way, but it's also, you can't really pass through the self-awareness if you follow through with it and unironically do what you're trying to be aware of.
Right. I mean,
like, it doesn't make things much better if you're like, I know this is bad, but I'm going to make it bad anyway.
So you prefer the aspect of the first movie where it's just like, they're like, wow, this is really ridiculous, but they don't really, go hard into like, this is such a stupid idea.
Right.
Like,
I personally, I'm of the belief that if you're going to do something stupid, just make it stupid, and you don't have to point out that it's stupid.
Okay. I don't know. I didn't mind the lampshade hanging personally. I thought it kind of, because I think it is a stupid movie. I think it is. It's an entertaining one. I think it's a stupid movie. And there is this really weird undercurrent of just like, yeah, so the algorithm, right, dictates everything that Warner Brothers does, which is like a joke that we would make, right? That like these studio executives, they don't know what's going on. They just see, superheroes are big, make a superhero movie, do it, right? Like Avengers work, do Justice League, do it. Like, doesn't matter how we set it up, just make it, right? That's something that we would joke about. But this movie implies that Warner does only things that the algorithm cares about, that the executives are brainless, that throwing LeBron James or mashing up all of these properties is what the algorithm wants, right? It doesn't matter if it makes sense. It doesn't matter if it's good. Just mash them up and get people to watch it. There's that, right? Like this weird undercurrent of like, wow, that's kind of how we see it. But it's weird to see Hollywood themselves saying this. Like,
yeah,
this came about because the writers on this movie got fed up with being dictated to how this stupid thing should go, right? That. No one...
It's public knowledge that this movie went through a ton of development over 2 decades, and like there's 4, I believe there's like 4 people credited to the story, and there's like 6 people credited to the screenplay, not to mention the fact that it's already based on this idea that already existed. So there's just a lot of different people's hands on it.
Yep.
And because of that, I do feel like it's a bit, there's not like one consistent voice. There's a lot of different things going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Also, I just want to real quick say, this master programmer kid doesn't save his things for a week. He lost a week of progress when his computer crashed. Just want to throw that out there.
With the step back glitch.
Yeah. So here's the thing. Once LeBron James enters Looney Tune world, that's when this becomes a great experience, right? There's basically from that point way, like the next like 15, 20, 25 minutes up until, I don't remember when it starts to get slow again. When I think when they turn into CGI characters, really, it's like, this is a great movie. This is, I'm not supposed to say that. This is an entertaining experience. Honestly, this part is a great movie. I'll just say it, right? Watching LeBron James as an animated character get messed with by Bugs Bunny, the whole big sequence of going to various Warner properties and watching the Looney Tunes mess with everything and recruiting them, and I think it's all great. It's animated beautifully. It's a fun premise. You get to see Rick and Morty throw Taz. It's your problem now, right. Dum-dums! There are things in my brain I can't erase. Morty, you need some mind blowers, my friend. Could you imagine if they do another Morty's Mind Blowers episode and one of the clips just has them like dissecting Taz? Oh my god.
That would be really funny.
That would be hilarious.
They would do that.
Yeah. Oh, they should.
I agree with you. I think I wrote it down actually from like about the 30-minute mark when LeBron ends up in Toon World to about the 1 hour mark where the basketball match basically starts and they get transformed into CG characters. I had a fun time. Now, watching for this podcast was my second time. I originally watched it within the first few days of it being released. And when I saw it for the first time, I was just like, I was blown away of all the spectacle. And I was like, there's no way they did this and they did that. And they had Casablanca. What? And
the cool comic book style of Wonder Woman, like, really cool.
I did want to point out, by the way, why is it that Themyscira, the Wonder Woman world, is separate from DC world?
I can actually explain it to you. Wonder Woman didn't have her own cartoon.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, Justice League existed.
The Superman Batman world, that's based off the DCAU. That's straight out of Superman the Animated Series, and that, at least that's my thinking anyway. Like, yes, it is weird, But I think it works because the Wonder Woman thing is on her own, off in her own
From
zone.
a comic book, yeah.
Yeah. And it's just a way to, it's an excuse to give a little different style.
I will say, having seen it the second time around, I think a lot of the shock factor is gone.
Yeah.
Which I think made a lot of the experience for me originally.
That's why it's an experience, right? That's why it's not a good movie, in my opinion, but a good experience.
It's still fun to watch, and it's still enjoyable. And although I don't think the animation stands as highly as it does in the original Space Jam, I still think it's very impressive. I'm really, at this point in 2021, I'm grateful for any 2D theatrical animation, even if it's just a small portion of the movie. And I like what they did. It does look very digital in some parts. It does look a little bit tweened and puppety in some parts, but for the most part, I think they did a spectacular job with that.
Yeah, and all the different styles and stuff. Like, Rick and Morty look like Rick and Morty. They don't, they're Rick and Morty with shading. Like, they look better than Rick and Morty, usually. Well, unfortunately, now it's off HBO Max. But when it eventually comes back on HBO Max, if you don't have any interest in watching the movie, please just watch this 20-minute segment. Really? You can pretend it's a part of, like, a pilot to a LeBron James Bugs Bunny cartoon or something. Or really just its own cartoon. Honestly, yeah, it's like just a straight on, like, that whole thing is great. The only thing I have to say, the algae rhythm, like putting the Looney Tunes in different worlds, it's not explained and it doesn't make a lick of sense. It's a fun setup, but they don't, it's like, LeBron's like, oh no, he stole the characters, and Bugs is like, no, he gave them opportunities to go elsewhere. And it's like, is that some sort of meta joke on how, like, the Looney Tunes characters are kind of, like, used as marketing tools and whatever the heck they want to promote, like Warner wants to promote, they're a tool? Like, is that a commentary on that? What's the point? Why did they come back to Bugs if they were happy in their new lives? Other than Lola, who is tempted by helping this guy save his son, weirdly. Not weirdly, it's good. It's good that she cares, but it's weird how, like, she's dedicated, and then all of a sudden it's like, you gotta save my son, and then there's like this dramatic close up on her, like, oh no, LeBron James' son, who I've never met. What?
Personally, I'm not like a huge Looney Tunes fan. I enjoy Looney Tunes, but I've never been like, it's not like one of my favorite things ever. I have talked to some Looney Tunes fans about the movie, and a lot of them feel like Bugs' characterization is a little bit off, because Bugs is like, from what I've heard, it's almost sort of like a Mickey Mouseification of it, because Bugs sure, he's sort of like snarky and quippy and clever, but he's
tricks
also
LeBron. He utterly tricks LeBron. I love that about how, that's what I actually loved about his characterization, in that he says, yeah, LeBron, we're going to get the Iron Giant and Superman. And then he just takes his friends.
Right.
And he's like, yeah, sure, your son's life hangs in the balance or whatever, but, like, I want to get the gang back together. I like that.
The thing is, it's like, Bugs, he's very compassionate, and he's like, I just want my friends back.
Okay, yeah, that's dumb. No, he calls them his family, which is worse.
Yeah.
Because they're not his family.
I take care of the people I love.
Yes, I agree.
No,
that's
not
dumb.
what Bugs Bunny acts like.
That's completely fair. That's completely understandable. I agree. That's dumb, and it's a part of the forced emotional moments in this movie to try to make it a movie when it's not a movie. It's a marketing tool that happens to have some fun animation and have funny jokes and be really weird, right? That's what it is. That's when it's at its best. Stop trying to be a movie.
Yeah, sure. Like, Bugs was out of character when he was acting emotional, but we did get Big Chungus. So
That's true. And we got like a recreation of a lot of really fun Looney Tunes bits with LeBron and Bugs. I also have to note, I just found this like funny, that the first thing LeBron does when he meets Bugs, it's like, Bugs Bunny, and then he hugs him. It's like, if I met Bugs Bunny, I don't know that I'd give him a big hug. Like, I feel like that's like a good way to get like an anvil dropped on you or something. Like, I feel like invoking a hug on Bugs Bunny.
Get your hands off me.
Yeah, like, don't touch the merchandise.
Speaking of what you were saying with, like, Bugs promising that they were going to get all these different characters, like, LeBron says, we need to find the best Warner Bros. Characters. As if, like, people know Warner Bros. IP. Because here's the thing. You and I know what Warner Bros. Owns because we're media junkies.
Yes.
With Disney, they, like, one of their biggest things is brand synergy. So, like, they shove it in your face that, we all know Disney owns Marvel and Star Wars and Pixar and
National
whatever
Geographic.
else. National Geographic and The Simpsons. But with Warner Bros., they're not as much of a powerhouse. They don't have as much loyalty to their brand. So, like, they sort of act like people already know what they do and do not own, other than Looney Tunes.
Well, let's be clear about this. This is, for whatever reason, and I think it definitely cheapens it that it keeps happening, but Warner is obsessed with this in that the Lego Movie was like this, and I love the Lego Movie. I think it's great. I love that it shows off so many IP. And then Lego Batman did it inexplicably, in that there's like this the worst villains ever. Here's Voldemort. Here's Sauron. Here's the Wicked Witch of the West. Like, and now there's this, and I'm sure there's like at least one other movie out there where Warner Brothers is just flashing what they have, and it's neat at first, but I do think that there is a saturation point where it is no longer a novelty, and I think maybe that point was in the crowd shot of this movie where they show the cartoon characters are fine, but the fact that they have Alex from A Clockwork Orange standing and cheering on the basketball game. Okay, that also comes across as real hypocritical because Pepe Le Pew was cut for this movie. Which I'm fine with it, dude. Not even because I think he's problematic, just because I think he's an unfunny cartoon character. I never liked his shtick. Never liked it. It's one joke over and over again. Don't like it. He stinks and he harasses women. It's not funny. Whatever. But it's weird to see him cut, and yet you have someone who's literally committed some of the worst heinous acts on women. Like, what on earth? Why?
Yeah,
to remind us that they own
it. It's never too late for Pepe Le Pew to be rehabilitated as a character. And don't get me wrong, Pepe Le Pew has done some vile things, but nothing compared to what Alex and the Droogs from A Clockwork Orange have done.
Yeah, the protagonists of that movie, mind you.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway,
and that's the thing too. There's a YouTube show that I watch sometimes called VFX Artists React, where they do that. They react to visual effects in movies and TV shows. Yeah. And they recently did a segment on Space Jam: A New Legacy, and they talked about how, and I felt this sentiment personally, that the crowd shots were kind of distracting because ordinarily when you do a crowd shot, most of them are sort of out of focus or very sort of like plain geometric shapes, and they're sort of dull colors so that you can focus on the important stuff that's happening in the foreground. Whereas with this movie, it's just like a rainbow vomit, Like
yes, absolutely.
There's all these different stimuli and all these different characters, and your eyes are going in all these different directions that you don't know what to look at.
That's why, like I said, watching this movie in clips and on HBO Max where you can pause it is the best experience, because I was able to pause it, look at all the characters, and then get back to, seeing what's in the main action. And yeah, it's distracting. The biggest offenders are, like I said, the live action characters, because they feel so extraneous. Like,
Pennywise.
You have Fred Flintstone in your big Bugs Bunny movie, sure, whatever. That's an extension of cartoons. But like the Penguin from Batman Begins, the Tim Burton Batman movies.
Yeah.
Like, why? Why? Other than, I guess, Danny DeVito was in the first movie, and now we have some guy playing Danny DeVito's character. Weird stuff. But it's distracting, and as far as the cartoon characters, Jabberjaws is the worst. He is such a big, ugly presence that is smiling even when the emotional scenes are happening. It's like they didn't... It's the opposite problem of the first movie. The first movie is that they cloned too many characters. And in this one, they had too many unique characters that it really does. It just breaks your mind that you're trying to figure out, who is this guy? Like, I was like, is that Voldemort?
If you pay very close attention too, you'll notice that when there's important stuff happening on the court, they take these like random takes of these various background
same
actors.
Stuff over
they're
and
not
over.
They're not looking at the action. It's just sort of these repeated motions, and they're just doing these funny motions and looking around.
Gestures.
Yep. Right. So like, none of them are actually focused on what's actually happening, and they're just sort of for fodder for the audience to look at.
Yeah, I think the crowd shot was the moment where I felt like the IP, it had gone too far. Honestly, the sequence in the middle, the montage with collecting the Looney Tunes, I thought that was great use of IP, and especially weird IP. You would not expect Austin Powers to show up in this movie.
Yeah.
That's great. But then at the end, it really is just, let's do it to do it. Honestly, it is. There are other ways they could have showcased these characters, but the fact that they are present in a third of this movie, right? The whole basketball scene is like the last third of the movie, and it is nothing but constant reminder, like, hey, there's the mask. I think that was the mask anyway. Like, why? Also, another weird thing is that the monsters from the first movie appear, and they seem to root for the Looney Tunes to lose, even though in the first movie they changed their ways at the end.
Right. The Nerdlucks.
Canonically, the first movie happened. Because we know this because there's like 2 or 3 Snyder marks about like, you're never going to get to play basketball with a pro basketball all-star.
That's familiar.
Yeah, like, oh, never again, never a second time. Like, you know, and then also, of course, there's the infamous joke of Michael B. Jordan.
Well, when I was watching this for the first time, too, I was slightly convinced it was going to be, like, I felt like they were going to do a cop-out, but I was slightly convinced it was going to be Michael Jordan, because they also, the music that they played during that scene, when it's just a silhouette of him walking into the locker room, is the opening music they used for the Chicago Bulls in the 90s. So I was like, oh my god, it's going to be Eric Jordan, but no, that I genuinely laughed out loud when that moment happened.
His Ernest himself? Like oh gosh. But it's weird. Okay, so canonically that happened, and yet the nerd looks are weird. I don't know, maybe that's explained in the Teen Titans Go crossover.
Oh, yeah, the one where it's just sort of like them, Mystery Science Theater 3000, like watching Space Jam.
I don't know. I just know Cartoon Network promoted the fact that there's a weird Space Jam Teen Titans Go thing. Although the Teen Titans Go were not invited to the party.
Yeah.
The only Cartoon Network / Adult Swim characters were Rick and Morty, which is weird because you would think that they would at least put the Powerpuff Girls, because they try to like push them. You know, that they just had a reboot that ended like a year ago, and now they're going to have another like, you would think that they would include them.
Well, and if you look at the prime audience of this movie too, it's like the prime audience is you know, the people who grew up with the first Space Jam, which came out in 96. You know, they obviously would have also grown up with Cartoon Network stuff in the 90s and 2000s.
Why are they pushing, like, you know, I don't know, Wizard of Oz or whatever in our face? You know what? If you remove all those live action people and you replace them with, Cartoon Network and maybe a few Adult Swim characters or whatever, that would honestly make it a lot better. Like, the problem is that not only are you distracted by those background characters, but in a lot of ways they don't have a relation to anything, and they feel so generic. And with animation, they could also do a better job at having them react to what's going on, rather than just saying, all right, we're gonna get a bunch of people, we're gonna put you in a costume, you know, you're not really playing the character, just do general motions. I couldn't tell if someone was Voldemort because it looked like him, but he had a nose. And I'm like, that's not Voldemort if he has a nose. Maybe it wasn't Voldemort. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the crowd, like, let's look at what was happening on the court, and I want to ask what you thought of the Goon Squad.
Oh, I love them. I thought they were great. A lot of great animation.
Really?
Yeah. Why? Do you not like them?
I disagree.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I much preferred the whole take of, like, I mean, you know, random cartoon aliens becoming buff monsters is like,
it's unique.
It's like whatever. Yeah, but like in this, it's like you get one shot of the players at like a charity event or something, and they get scanned into Dom's phone, and then the next thing you know, they're like these generic mythical beings, and like one of them has water powers, and one of them looks like a snake.
I thought they were cool. I mean, I agree, the whole scanning in the random players, that part felt weird. It felt like they had like 5 minutes to film with these stars and were like, Also, ironically, they themselves were scanned into this movie to make these CGI monsters.
That is true. I felt like they didn't give much of a commitment to this movie.
No, I don't care about them as basketball players. I honestly didn't even realize they were meant to be those people until like halfway. But like, just as concepts, since they weren't never the focus of this, the fact that they gave them each unique powers, I think it's just a nice conduit for some wacky action. That's all. I shouldn't say I love them, because it's not like I'm like, yeah, I want to see a movie based on that. No, they're generic. They are a little generic, but I thought that like it is more interesting and unique than just like 5 buff aliens, one of them with a Valley Boy accent.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, there was that, and then we gotta talk about the CG Looney Tunes. Hey, guess what? Guess what I said before about how the 2D animation aged well. Guess what's going to happen to this movie in like a few years, or now. The CG is going to look off-putting. There are some shots, like, look, if you have to translate the Looney Tunes into CG, I think it's an okay job. I think the people tasked with doing this did a fine job. I think the decision to do it was stupid. You gotta have CG. Kids don't like 2D in movies anymore. Whatever Mr. Algae Rhythm thinks, that's not true. That's not true. God, this movie is meta in weird ways. The algorithm that decides what movies should be made and how they should be made turns the 2D Looney Tunes into CGI monstrosities, and the Looney Tunes themselves are horrified by this fact. Like, is that a meta joke?
Personally, I think that's looking a bit too deep into it, because, like, looking back at the trailers and stuff, it was all the CG stuff. Like,
of course,
they didn't even really promote the 2D stuff, so it's...
Because that's what the algorithm wants, right?
Apparently so, yeah.
The CG itself, it's not... It's certainly, like, they put
I like
they
what
put
you,
work
what
into
you described it as, like, off-putting. Because, like, I think it looks decent. I think it looks realistic, but, like...
At a distance, it looks good.
I don't think it looks stylistic.
There's something about it that's just off. And as more time goes by and CG gets better and all this stuff, we'll look back on this movie in the same dang way we look back on the first, where the 2D animation holds up, 3D doesn't. And there's no reason to make them CG. There was no reason. They're interacting with more fake things than real things in this movie, right? The crowd is like green screened in, and the court is CG. Like, all this other stuff that is fake, that it would actually look even better if the tunes were 2D. No, they have to do it. They have to do it. And I just... It irks me, because they look good in 2D, and they look... I don't know.
I mean, 2D is... 3D animation has gotten to the point where it's a lot more cost-effective, and just, like... There's more people in the talent pool to pull it off than there are for 2D.
Then reuse those models for new McDonald's commercials.
Or action figures.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I get it from that perspective, but still not a huge fan.
And then we get the basketball game. I actually like the arc of the game. I like the fact that LeBron's thing is that he's not really into fun. He's into fundamentals. He's into putting your nose to the grindstone. I liked that. I didn't think we needed the stupid coach setting it up in the opening, but I thought that as far as arcs go, that's a better arc than like him and his son or whatever, right? Where he is forcing the Looney Tunes characters to not be loony, right? He wants them to just play realistic basketball, and that's what makes them start losing the game. I think that that's kind of like a cool aspect that makes the basketball game a little more entertaining, because when they finally get to be the Looney Tunes and bust out with all their crazy stuff, it's like it's earned, it's been built up, and it's like LeBron is embracing, let's play weird basketball instead of just basketball. I thought that was cool. And a lot of the gags they do with, like, Wiley Koyote duplicating himself, and Granny using her Matrix style as a callback to earlier in the movie, I thought all that was great. I thought, again, it was much like that long sequence of recruiting the Tunes. I thought the game itself was like a nice, again, you could just sell this. I could just watch this game. I didn't need to see anything that came before this, honestly. You put me down with the fun basketball game with the weird Looney Tunes antics. I thought that was great.
I feel quite opposite. I found the game to kind of go on for too long, and I found it to be a little bit boring. I didn't feel like I cared about anything that was happening on the court, and I didn't feel any stakes, because,
So you wanted it to be more of a movie. That's interesting.
When you look at the original Space Jam, I think, like, the total score was something in, like, the late 60s. But when you look at, like, Space Jam: A New Legacy, it's like, it's getting in the thousands.
See, Monsters, I like video games more than I like basketball. It sounds like you like basketball more than you like video games.
You're not wrong, probably. It's just, like...
You need more fun, Monsters.
Yeah. It's just, like, the only reason why it got into the thousands was, like... they were using all sorts of weird glitches on the Goon Squad, and then Wiley did his whole duplication thing, where it just, like, it felt so not grounded, and, like, nothing even mattered that, like...
Why do you want the Looney Tunes LeBron James crossover to be grounded?
I mean, I don't want it to be grounded tonally. Like, I want it to be wacky and zany and everything. But I think the root of it is that I didn't find the Goon Squad interesting.
Okay.
Like,
That's fair. Monsters prefers the Monstars.
I do.
Might be a little bias
it's
going
natural.
on there.
It's very biased.
Seeing your
I did
want to
ask you though about Lola, because we talked in the first movie about how she's objectified and how she's kind of one note. What did you think of Lola in this movie?
So it turns out they swapped out one MJ for another.
I get it.
She was fine.
Rumor has it that Kath Soucie reprised her role and recorded all of the dialogue, only to be replaced much later on by dubbed audio of Zendaya.
Well, it's not. Is it dubbed if it's animation anyway?
Technically not, but redoing the lines. So, I mean, the voice acting thing was like a whole controversy because Zendaya is the only celebrity voicing a Looney Tune other than Gabriel Iglesias as Speedy Gonzalez.
He did a great job.
Yeah, I also think he did a great job. But yeah, with Lola, I do feel like it sort of sticks out like a sore thumb because all of these Looney Tunes have very cartoony, exaggerated voices, and then it's just like, oh hi, I'm Lola. This is Zendaya's natural speaking voice. So I mean, obviously Kath Soucie, when she did Lola, it was a very sort of seductive, passionate.
All right, buddy, calm down, cool it off.
Listen, I'm not commenting. I'm just describing what her voice sounded like. But even then, it's even then, even if it is sort of, I guess, is misogynist. Is that the word I'm looking for? Even though it had that sort of implication, it was still very it wasn't grounded. Whereas I feel like this.
Well, it was cartoony,
right? It was cartoony.
Everyone exaggeratingly, drooling over her, and her being kind of a little tough about it. That is giving her an over-the-top Looney Tunes kind of persona. It's not a good one for her, but it is a persona. Whereas I do kind of see it. Yeah, in this one. She's not as much of a tune as she is just a character they made for a movie,
I just feel like she's kind of bland.
Yeah.
I just feel like there's not much to her. And
but would you say that about Yosemite Sam in this movie, right? He's bland. What does he do?
Yeah.
What does he?
No, I agree.
But you only care about him because he's been an established character for 80 years or whatever, 100 years.
Well, he shoots Daffy or something when he's trying to shoot at the ball.
That's his thing.
Right.
Did you say ball? Thump.
Maybe it's because I'm a big fan of the Looney Tunes show, but I love the characterization they gave Lola in that show with Kristen Wiig doing the voice, where she's just sort of
manic.
Yeah, she's very manic and over the top, and yeah. And I don't know. I feel like that was finally a moment where this character that started as this objectified one-note character finally had room to grow and finally had their own identity. Only for it to be sort of not really showcased here.
Because it's now, can we ever establish a character for her? Right? Where is it going to end? Is she in Looney Tunes cartoons, the HBO Max series? I haven't seen her in it. I don't know. Has she been in any regular Looney Tunes thing, or is it just weird movies and sitcom offshoots? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be nice though, because we do need more female Looney Tunes characters. It would be
nice. I agree.
Nice.
Yeah.
And I don't really want to see Elmer Fudd be made into a lady. Just let's just give a new character, let's establish her, let's put her in there, and then good, she can now have another 100 years of just being one of the Looney Tunes.
Yeah, so there's that. I wanted to ask you about the infamous Notorious P.I.G. sequence. We rapping now? We rapping?
It's so dumb. It's so dumb. But again, this is not a movie in my eyes. This is a thing. And I enjoyed how stupid it was. I'll just say that.
It's, when I saw the clip for the first time before the movie came out, I cringed.
Yep. Oh, it is. Cringeworthy.
Yeah, it is cringeworthy. Needless to say, I did find out that, thankfully it was not featured in the movie, but the first Space Jam on the soundtrack actually has a Bugs Bunny rap song called Buggin'.
Straight up bugging, y'all.
Yeah, no, the hook is you bugging? And it was co-written by Jay-Z. And there's even a reference to Donald Trump's second wife in the song. It's from 1996.
Goodness.
It was co-written by Jay-Z before he became super famous, and it wasn't in the movie, but it was the last song on the soundtrack. I implore you to check it out. It's not a very good song in my opinion, but But Looney Tunes, this is not the first time they have attempted to make a rap song.
That is just... That is something.
Yeah.
Wait, hang on. Looking at the soundtrack. Am I crazy, or is I Believe I Can Fly from Space Jam?
It is from Space Jam, I'm pretty sure.
They made that movie, or they made that song for... Like, it's just a song... Wow. Huh.
Personally, I would argue Seals Fly Like an Eagle is better.
But that's not an original from Space Jam.
I mean, Seals' interpretation of it is.
Yes. Very good. All of this is just such a weird place in pop culture history, and I don't know, man. I dig it. I dig how weird it is, honestly, all of it. All right, so then wrapping up Space Jam 2, Bugs Bunny dies.
Because that's the thing. They figure out that in order to win the game, the only chance they have is somebody doing the step back glitch to like break the game. So Bugs Bunny ultimately decides to make the sacrifice and does it, but even though he does it, he's far from making the shot. So LeBron is actually the one who ends up putting it in the basket.
And it is, I kid you not, it is almost exactly identical to the first movie, okay?
Where it's like trying to reach and you're like floating in the air.
Right. Someone's dragging him down. In the first one of the Monstars is doing it, and this one's Don Cheadle. There's someone dragging him down, and then they have to use, cartoon logic to save the day. Or I guess video game logic in the second one.
Also, I forgot to ask, what did you think of Pete?
Pete
is like Don Cheadle's rejected Pokemon sidekick. It's like this weird looking
Wally.
Floating thing.
No. I don't know, pointless. Made to sell toys.
I agree. It's like, you're adorable, but like, what purpose do you serve to the narrative?
You know what? Would have made more sense, honestly, if they gave him one of the Nerdlucks or all of them as his sidekicks. Like, hey, you guys want revenge?
That would have been funny.
You got to make new toys, I guess. I love Don Cheadle in this, by the way. Don Cheadle was really acting his heart out.
Don Cheadle is a great villain.
Yes, he has to say some real stupid lines, especially towards his introduction, and he tries. I don't think it works just because the lines are so bad. Don Cheadle couldn't save it. I am Algae Rhythm. Like, you can't make that sound cool, no matter what you do. But I think as a villain, especially towards the end when he becomes unhinged, Don Cheadle does a great job. He's acting his heart out, and he's having fun with it, which is what this movie is.
Yeah,
it's supposed to be
fun. I agree. Don Cheadle is great. So
Bugs Bunny dies. The worst part, the funniest part, is because I don't know if it's supposed to be funny. They say a line about fundamentals. They're like, Bugs, why'd you do that? And he's like, 'cause taking care of the people you love is fundamental.
No.
It's so bad. It's the worst. It's a callback to the fact that Bugs is a family man now. It's Bugs Bunny dying. It's so
he
bad.
dies. He evaporates and turns into like a shooting star. It's
Thanos got him. And then he comes back later inexplicably. I'm a toon. You can't get rid of me that easily.
Yeah. You think tunes can be deleted? Nah.
It's like, this ain't Roger Rabbit.
I brought my friends along with me. Now that your son's at video game camp, we can visit Tinseltown.
Yeah, hope you got a bunk bed. I don't know.
That's such a cop-out, though. It's like they set up, they do this whole fake-out where Bugs dies, and then he just shows up the scene later, and it's like, why did you even do that?
Well, no one thinks that Bugs is gonna die.
But what was the point of even doing it?
At least make it more triumphant when he comes back, right? Like, at least make it more than just, they just cut back to him after seeing his son walk away and Bugs is there. It's just...
What was the point of going through that process of, like, pretending that he's dying in the first place?
It's because it has to be a movie, man. It has to be a movie with emotional
stakes. It made me angry after seeing him come back.
I found it funny. I thought the whole thing was... But again, it was queued up for me, right? Someone said, hey, you got to see the scene where Bugs dies.
I just grunted. I was like, oh.
Right. I agree. From a storytelling standpoint, it's terrible. It's terrible. From a just bizarre movie standpoint, it's great. By the way, Who Framed Roger Rabbit is a way to do Space Jam 2 and have it still be an actually really good movie, right? Tons of cameos, tons of crossovers, tons of spectacle, weird stuff. Bugs, or Daffy Duck and Donald Duck playing the piano. Bugs and Mickey talking to each other. Like, And yet it's still a movie. I would always argue that Who Framed Roger Rabbit is a million miles above both of these movies because it manages to do both. You can do spectacle and make it a movie. And if Space Jam 2 could have pulled off a good movie and done a good spectacle, I would respect it and call it a good movie. But it's not. It's just a good spectacle, not a good movie. Yeah. And a lot of while watching either of these, it did make me think of Roger Rabbit because I'm like, that's a movie that knows how to do a crazy crossover thing before anyone else was really doing that. And
it still has a lot of originality to it. Like, Roger Rabbit is an original character, but he feels like he could have been one of these old school cartoon characters.
But, like, he's avenging someone's death, and he has a fear of tunes, and Christopher Lloyd as the villain is terrifying. And it's still a movie with fun crossover. Like, either of these movies wishes it could be Who Framed Roger Rabbit, but it's not. It's just dumb spectacle movie. So, I guess getting into comparison land, what I would give in favor of the original is I would say it is an original concept. There is the bizarreness of, seeing the basketball player team up with Bugs Bunny, that the second one, it just kind of takes it for granted because it's not original. It's not special. It's not, like, it's weird, but it's not that weird. The original has that. I think there's just a lot of weird quirks to the original, like Bill Murray, that are just inexplicable, and I think are funny because of how inexplicable they are.
A lot of the live action stuff in the original Space Jam is almost sort of shot and cut together like a cartoon.
Yes, there is a lot of cartoony, and like I love when they're going through the hospital and the three tall basketball players hit their head.
Yeah.
And they all fall down at the same time in this comedic way. I thought that was a great visual gag.
Yeah.
Also shot like a 90s movie where there's tons of close-ups and all that stuff we talked about from the commercial.
Right.
Where I would give it to Space Jam 2, what I would say in its favor is it ramps up the spectacle.
Oh, yeah.
But it also, I think, cuts out a lot of, like, puffery. Although they certainly call LeBron James great, I don't think they spend as much time telling us over and over and over again how great he is, how amazing he is. Like, let's, celebrate him and like, he's on a baseball team where everyone loves it. Like, yeah,
I found Space Jam: A New Legacy to be, like, far more self-aggrandizing towards
Really?
LeBron. Because another thing to keep in mind, too, is that I'm sure Michael Jordan definitely had some pull behind the scenes, but other than Warner Bros., Space Jam 2 was produced by LeBron in part and by his own production company. So with all of these things, by, like, calling him a once-in-a-generation talent and
King James.
Yeah, they keep referring to him as King James, and I don't know, it felt like they kept having to shove it in my face that LeBron is, like, the best in the world.
You follow basketball, so you know more than I do. And I zone out more during those parts.
I will say I'm also a bit more partial to Michael Jordan as an athlete.
There is also a little bit more, I think, ham with him. I think LeBron is taking it a little more seriously, which probably produces a little bit better of a performance, but like...
Well, there's the big difference of, like, Michael Jordan being live action in a cartoon environment, but when LeBron is in Toon World, he is a full-on 2D animated character, and he's voice acting. LeBron's voice acting could use some work, but again, he's an athlete, and you sort of have to forgive that stuff.
Honestly, I like A New Legacy more. I do think that it has a lot more of those clips that you can take. Again, I don't take either seriously as movies. I would never call... I barely think they're films.
Right. No, I totally get that.
Right. If you're critiquing this from a technical standpoint, I think both of these just utterly fail as movies. If you're critiquing it from a fun standpoint and from a clip, what cool clips and what cool sequences can you pull out of this? I think A New Legacy has more of them. I think that whole sequence, the best part of the movie is when they're recruiting the Looney Tunes characters. The wacky cameos are utilized perfectly. The different animation styles. And then I also feel that way a little bit lesser, but some of that in the basketball game, where I thought it was a lot of fun Looney Tunes-esque stuff. Although I also appreciate Space Jam, the original, and again, not good movie, but entertaining, certainly. I appreciate the originality in it. I appreciate that they don't try so hard. They don't shove any other Warner characters. You see a few more obscure cartoon characters like the frog. Anyway, yeah, what do you think?
Well, I think I've made my opinion obvious, but before I say anything, I do want to say that, like, Space Jam is unique in that it sort of embodies reboots, revivals, and absolutely rehash. right?
Oh yeah.
Because, it's essentially a reboot of this movie from the 90s. It's a revival because it sort of quietly adds on to what happened in the first movie. And then, the rehash with all of the intellectual property dumps and reuse stuff. But yeah, I think I prefer the original Space Jam. As I mentioned, I think I am a bit biased towards Michael Jordan. I grew up with this movie. Like, I didn't watch it super frequently, but this was a movie that was on in my house a few times growing up, and it's something that I'm very familiar with. So I just want to preface anything I say with just that information. But yeah, as a fan of basketball, I like that it features like the players have more of a presence. The movie is about basketball, it's about Looney Tunes, it's about Michael Jordan. And that's basically it. There's no sort of, emotional family narrative that's going on.
There's Bill Murray's big journey.
Oh, yeah. Bill Murray is the unsung hero of Space Jam.
He just says every line like he doesn't care, and it makes it great, honestly.
They use, like, a lot of footage from, like, real games and, like, in stadiums. There's some funny pop culture references. It feels like a very cartoony movie, and I wouldn't want anything more when it comes to Looney Tunes. When I see the Looney Tunes, as a huge fan of animation, when you see these sort of things mixed with live action, you become sort of, you're like, live action, that bums me out. But everything that is live action in Space Jam feels very campy and zany, and I like that stuff. A lot of people think it's cheesy or whatever, but I personally am a big fan of that. And I also do like the fact that they tied the story of the movie into Michael's real life career and sort of the developments that were happening with that.
Yeah, but the second one ties the movie into real life, what happens with movie making with algorithms that decide things.
That is true.
I like the meta aspect. It's okay. You can have that. Like, I'm not arguing with you. I think this is always going to be just a super personal preference thing because, again, they're not good movies. We can't really sit here and debate them on, like, movie standards or whatever.
These things are experiences, and
yes.
When I sign up to watch something with Looney Tunes and basketball, the last thing I care about is dramatic character arcs. I just want to see Looney Tunes acting goofy and people shooting hoops. And yeah, Space Jam, A New Legacy definitely has redeeming factors in my opinion. Like I said, from like the 30-minute mark to the 1 hour mark, where it's just LeBron and Bugs going into these different worlds and doing all of this cartoony stuff, I had a blast. I thought it was fun. But also, like I said, on my repeat viewing, I feel like it lost a bit of that shock and spectacle, and it just wasn't as impactful and entertaining for me as it was the first time.
That's fair.
Yeah, I am a bit iffy on the whole, like, doing things even if you're aware of them. There were some funny jokes. I loved Don Cheadle in the movie. He was great. I did find the basketball sequence to be a bit boring, and the whole Bugs Bunny dying thing really upset me. But it has its redeeming qualities. I just, I don't think it compares to my opinion of the first one.
You know what? I used to not have an answer when people said, what's your guilty pleasure movie or whatever. I think maybe Space Jam and Space Jam 2 might fit into that category in the sense that I know they're bad as movies, but I enjoy them. So, I heard that you would like to do trivia this time.
I have developed some trivia questions for you. Today's trivia topic is going to be about Looney Tunes movies, because that's what we talked about today. We're going to do some good old classic true or false. I'm going to give you a statement about Looney Tunes movies. There are only 3 Looney Tunes original theatrically released movies: Space Jam, Looney Tunes Back in Action, and Space Jam: A New Legacy. But there's compilation movies, there's direct-to-video movies. I've prepared 10 statements that relate to that stuff in some way or another, and I will ask you if they are true or false. Statement number 1. In the direct-to-video film Tweety's High-Flying Adventure, Kevin Conroy has an uncredited cameo as Batman. True or false?
That's so rough because, like, Batman has a cameo in Animaniacs, and, like, Batman has a cameo in this movie, too. In Space Jam 2. But to get Kevin Conroy instead of just, like, a non-speaking or whatever, I'll say true.
It is false.
Kevin
Kevin Conroy did not appear in Tweety's High-Flying Adventure, to my knowledge. although Kath Soucie actually is uncredited in a cameo as Lola Bunny as a news reporter in the film.
That's cool.
Statement number 2. The only time Bugs Bunny and Mickey Mouse have ever officially shared the screen was in Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
So officially, as in, like, we're not going to count any of the
like parodies,
YouTube parodies or Mad the TV show or, anything
that doesn't count. Like, I'm talking about, like, not a parody. Disney and Warner Bros. Fully agree to have these two characters sharing the same space in a movie or TV show.
I know it's, like, the only major one, but I feel like there has to be some sort of, like, commercial or like, something that brought
We're
those
not
two
counting
together.
Commercials.
Oh, all right, fine. Then yes, that's the only time. That's the only time.
Correct. Yeah, from what I could find, this was the only time they appeared together. And fun fact, Warner Bros. Actually, they only agreed to license Bugs Bunny over to Disney if Bugs had equal screen time and equal dialogue with Mickey. Yeah, so you got that right. 1 for 2. Moving on to statement number 3. Between 1975 and 1995, 7 compilation films consisting of Looney Tunes shorts were released.
7 is quite a number. I said it's true. That's true.
Correct. That is true.
Woo!
The 7 films are Bugs Bunny Superstar, the Bugs Bunny Roadrunner movie, the Looney Bugs Bunny movie, Bugs Bunny's third movie, 1001 Rabbit Tales, Daffy Duck's Fantastic Island, Daffy Duck's Quackbusters, and the Looney Tunes Hall of Fame. You got that right, so 2 for 3. Let's keep it going with numero 4. The classic short, Duck Amuck, appears on 3 of the compilation films.
True or false? The classic short, Duck Amuck, appears on 1 recast episode. It's a great short. It's honestly one of the Looney Tunes' best shorts, in my opinion. It's definitely one of Daffy's best. That sounds ridiculous, but I'm honestly going to say true.
It is false.
Ah.
Only 2 of the compilation movies had Duck Amuck.
Ooh, tricky.
Which is still a lot. Looney Tunes Hall of Fame and the Bugs Bunny Roadrunner movie.
Is it disingenuous to call them movies if they're just compilations?
Well, some of them had, like, custom animation done and, like, bridge segments between the shorts.
That doesn't make it a movie, though. But maybe it makes it a good experience.
Okay, so 2 for 4. Statement number 5. Looney Tunes back-in-action director Joe Dante referred to his work on the film as the, quote, longest year and a half of his life.
That's got to be true. I heard that movie was a nightmare.
That is true. He basically had, like, no creative freedom on the movie, and he used to be, like, a pretty big shot director. He did, like, the Gremlins movies, but as it stands, Looney Tunes Back in Action is the last, like, major studio movie he did.
Wow.
Because of how bad that experience was.
It just shows you, man. It shows you how fickle Hollywood can be.
Especially Warner Bros. Yeah, you got that one correct, so you are now 3 for 5. Moving on to number 6. Space Jam: A New Legacy has a higher audience score than the original Space Jam on Rotten Tomatoes.
This is such a good question. Honestly, I think the only thing that matters here is the fact that, Space Jam has been around since before Rotten Tomatoes existed, right? So there's tons of time for people to review it. But it's not like in the cultural zeitgeist drawing a bunch of people to review it. Mm-hmm. Whereas Space Jam 2 hasn't been out for nearly as long, but it came out in the time of Rotten Tomatoes when a bunch of people cared enough to flood it to give reviews.
Mm-hmm. Gonna mention again, this is the audience score, so it's not like the critics. This is like what users on Rotten Tomatoes give the movie.
Does Space Jam get it for nostalgia reasons? Does 2 get it just because it's like the new hotness? I will say I think that Space Jam 2 does have a higher audience score.
That is correct. So Space Jam: A New Legacy has a 79% audience score, whereas the original Space Jam has a 63%. Whereas for critics, on the tomato meter, so the OG Space Jam has a 44% on the tomato meter, and Space Jam: A New Legacy has a 27%. It's flipped. The audiences prefer the new one more, whereas the critics like the old one more. Statement number 7. Prior to casting Wayne Knight, Space Jam director Joe Pytka had proposed casting John Goodman as the character Stan, which Warner Bros. Ultimately declined.
I say that's true.
It's false.
Darn.
I came up with that.
Darn.
Joe Pytka had actually worked because, he directed the original Herrick Jordan and Aerospace Jordan commercials. He was a commercial director, and he did commercials and music videos. I'm pretty sure Space Jam is the only feature film he's ever done.
Makes sense, because it basically is still a commercial.
Yeah, for real. But he had worked with Michael J. Fox and Chevy Chase in commercials, so he considered those two before ultimately landing on Wayne Knight.
Michael J. Fox is the assistant? That would have been a weird against type for him.
And then Chevy Chase was the other pick, so.
Yeah, as if Chevy Chase would ever lower his ego enough to play second banana.
So that was statement number 7. You are 4 out of 7. Statement 8. Worldwide, Looney Tunes Back in Action only grossed about 85% of its production budget at the box office.
True. I know it was a flop.
Yeah, that is correct. It made $68.5 million against an $80 million production budget.
That is so sad.
Yeah, Brendan Fraser, he's been through a lot. He's a great actor.
Yeah.
The animation in Back in Action is actually really good, in my opinion. Even though the movie went through a lot of different production struggles and the director hated his life for a year and a half. So you're 5 for 8. Statement number 9. After Michael Jordan backed out of starring in a sequel, Warner Bros. Entered negotiations in the late 1990s to produce Spice Jam, featuring the musical supergroup Spice Girls.
I wish that were true. I'm sure they did pitch around ideas for a Space Jam 2, but I don't think that's true in particular.
You don't think Spice Jam was ever considered?
No, I don't think that Baby Spice and the Baby Looney Tunes would interact. I don't.
You are right. I came up with the Spice Jam. Although they definitely did consider some sequels because they did plan on something with Michael Jordan. He didn't want to do another movie. So there was Spy Jam with Jackie Chan.
Are you joking or are you serious? Is this serious?
No. I'm serious. There was Spy Jam with Jackie Chan. There was Skate Jam with Tony Hawk and Race Jam with Jeff Gordon. And obviously none of those ever came to fruition.
They should have had, Hot Dog Jam with Kobayashi, the hot dog eating guy.
with Joey Chestnut.
Joey Chestnut, yeah. Sorry, he's the winner now. He's the big guy.
The Glizzy Gladiator.
Oh yeah. So you ever want to see? You could have a joke where Bugs Bunny eats so much hot dog he becomes Big Chungus. Taz would be very good at it. Elmer Fudd would shoot the hot dogs. It writes itself, really.
We need to look at Joey Chestnut as like an athlete. The dude can eat so many hot dogs. Anyway, so you got that correct. You are 6 for 9. And now moving on to the last statement. Space Jam is the only Looney Tunes project to have Yosemite Sam, and we're talking about the original, by the way. The original Space Jam is the only Looney Tunes project to have Yosemite Sam voiced by Bill Farmer, known best as the voice of Disney's Goofy.
You know what? I was actually looking at the cast list because they have them right on the HBO Max page, and I noticed some weird ones. Like Billy West is in there.
Yeah, Billy West. He did some weird stuff in the mid 90s because he did Bugs, which is not something he normally does. I think he also did it in that the Bah Humduck Christmas special that we reviewed in one of the episodes.
Yes,
he was Shaggy in I think Zombie Island.
Weird. He's a good voice actor, though, because I never would have known.
Very versatile.
Yeah, I'll say true then, because, it's Space Jam kind of has a little bit of a weird cast with the Looney Tunes.
Yes, yeah, that is true. This is the only time he's ever voiced Yosemite Sam, as well as Sylvester. He shared some of the lines with Foghorn Leghorn in Space Jam, but he also went on to voice Foghorn in, I guess, a handful of other video games.
And Space Jam 2 is about a video game.
It's all symbolism. It's all meta. It's all the algorithm forming cohesive neural links in my brain. And with that said, you have succeeded with 7 out of 10 in this true and false competition. So congratulations.
Thank you. That was good, fair trivia. I would have argued in the spirit of the recast, you should have made this impossible. But I appreciate it. Yeah, so that was the recast reunion, baby.
The reunion.
So Monsters and I agreed that if the live action Titans show ever recreates an episode where Beast Boy goes and works at a hamburger restaurant and it's secretly tofu aliens, we will return.
Yes. If employee of the month is is somehow remade into another incarnation of the Teen Titans.
Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this. This was a blast going back together. Any last minute plugs or anything?
Just continue to support Pie Guy, watch the award audit live streams, and stay tuned for more projects he has underway.
Keep watching Monsters Reviews. Every so often he pops out a video, but you know what? When it comes out, it's a good one. It's a real good one. So,
thanks.
Yeah. And with that, Pie Guy Rules out.
Catch you guys next time.
Next time.
If there is a next time, it's time, it's time, it's time, it's time, it's time, it's time.